Konnichiwa!
Konnichiwa. Well, we are a global entity here at The Gaming Lovers.
I just want an excuse to practice my Japanese.
Oh, genki desu ka?
G'day, I'm Jem.
Oh, back to Aussie, are we? Well, I'm
Well,
Brendo.
yes.
Dinky Die by Jingo.
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem. Welcome to episode number 5 in the Gaming Lovers Podcast.
Number 5 is what this podcast is.
Alive.
No, that's not what I was going to say.
Oh.
Well, it is alive. I don't know.
I keep referencing a movie that you've never seen.
I'm pretty sure that's the second time you've said number 5 is alive
It's
on
a
this
thing.
podcast.
I can't help it. There are certain phrases that trigger like sound bites in my memory and I have to say them or sing them. It's just a thing.
Well, my dear, what are we going to be talking about today?
All right, we've actually got 2 topics in this podcast.
Oh,
2 for the price of 1.
Double value.
So we're going to be talking about episodic gaming, things like Telltale games where they release one episode at a time. You can't really play it all in one hit unless you wait for everything to be released. Plus, kind of merging with that, expansion packs and DLC. Games that have extra content and whether it's worth the money to pay for a little bit more. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that.
Ooh, get digging. Where's my shovels?
Before we get there, though, gaming goals. As always, how'd you go this week?
I have had a very successful week. I am still primarily playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I know, late to the party, but it's pretty good. It's progressing well. A lot of objectives has been taken care of, and I'm just having fun exploring the world, which occasionally an objective-based gamer like myself just needs that game, that big open world to just play around in. And that's definitely checking that box. Slight issue as far as what's slowing me down. Let me just share something with you all. I'm terrible when it comes to the power of suggestion. And because I'm playing a Zelda game, my brain thought back of all the nostalgic memories about a certain Ocarina of Time. So in between Breath of the Wild sessions, I've been playing The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the 3DS. Haven't played the 3DS version before.
Yeah, that's right. They did a recent release of that, didn't they?
Now, I've just realised that I've probably hit that harder than I have hit Breath of the Wild because last time we recorded a podcast, I hadn't even started that. And for those who know that game well, I've gone from the start to halfway through the water temple in that time frame. So I'm pretty much gorging myself on all things Zelda.
To be fair, I think when you've played a game as much as you would have played Ocarina of Time, it's easy to fly through because you know where to go and where to find certain items. You're not wasting time trying to find things. When you start a new game that you've never played before, like Breath of the Wild for you, then you take a lot longer in that first run through because you're going blind. You don't know where to find treasure chests and things that you need to level up or how to figure out puzzles. It all takes a lot longer.
I'm actually astonished as to how much is just coming back to me as I'm playing. I've had no roadblocks in that game. I'm just marching through, and that's pretty crazy.
You did have another gaming goal, though.
I did.
Can you remember what it was?
I said I've had a very successful gaming week.
Oh.
I have completed Yakuza 3,
Woohoo!
as the Brits would say. I've been listening to other podcasts in the wide world. There's a guy on one of them who says Yakuza. And
Instead of Yakuza.
I can't help but say Yakuza occasionally. It's kind of funny. But yeah, Yakuza 3, fantastic story. I love those games for the story. It's like a big criminal soap opera.
You mean you don't play them for the karaoke mini games?
Well, that's a guilty pleasure.
They're pretty hilarious to watch. And seeing Kazuma sing.
It has been funny.
It's so funny.
Just as a little sidebar, the Yakuza series, the first one they marketed in English voiceovers using Hollywood actors, and
Mark Hamill.
The dub, with the exception of Mark Hamill, was appalling and terrible, and it was dark and gritty, and it was just shocking. It was just terrible. And they basically pulled the pin on the localization in this English-speaking countries. So it's been amusing watching the game slightly evolve from this dark, gritty, super serious. You've walked in and there's been some absolutely weird stuff happening in this game now.
So weird. Like, things that I'm not even sure I want to bring up, they're that weird. Like, it's just like, whoa, okay, guys. Like, that's
Well,
different.
Just as a little sneak peek for those who haven't played it, you learn certain martial arts moves by taking a photo of someone doing something strange on the street. There's a woman riding a moped. She sees a handsome actor on a billboard and starts having an inner monologue of how much, oh, I love you so much. Oh, I love you too. And then she gets distracted, hits a car, does a flip on her moped, lands successfully and drives off. And Kiryu is captured all this on his mobile phone, and he is just thinking, oh, I can do flips on the enemy. This is fantastic.
He should be uploading that footage to YouTube and making lots of money off viral videos.
His phone is a flip phone. I don't think that the games I'm up to aren't quite
at that level
YouTube
yet of technology.
But anyway, I beat that. Breath of the Wild's my primary. I have no active secondary, so I have to think of what else I'm playing, and then the portable gaming is Ocarina of Time. I don't know why I was so Ocarina of Time.
I might have some suggestions for you at the end of this episode.
I'm looking forward to it already.
For myself, I am pleased to announce that I have made some progress also.
Yay!
I seem to fluctuate between following through and absolutely zero follow through with these gaming goals. Last week I said I would play at least one chapter of the Guardians of the Galaxy Telltale game. And I have. I've played episode 1.
How did you find it?
I enjoyed it. And I'm not going to say anything else because it's spoiler territory.
With those Telltale games, each series of that, they sort of adjust the dynamics a little bit, the mechanics of the game. Mm-hmm. Have you had any positive or negative feelings towards how Guardians of the Galaxy plays?
I remember thinking when they first launched the trailer that I didn't like their shift in art style. I really loved the old art style. Yeah,
they went for more of a graphic novel sort of look on the earlier games.
It very 2D drawn, hand-drawn kind of art style, which I loved. And it's very Borderlands as well. They're very similar. Whereas they went with the 3D route. And I'm like, oh, really?
They almost look like claymation.
They do.
At least on the launch trailer.
It reminds me of Star Wars, like the Star Wars Rebels animation. Yes. That's what it looks like. And it's not bad, like, after playing it, like, it doesn't bother me now, but early on, it kind of bugged me at the start, but it's...
First impressions...
Now that I've played it, it's okay.
First impressions are a big thing.
Perception does, can hurt a brand. Like, if people think that you've changed it too much or played with the formula in a way that is displeasing, it can put people off.
Absolutely.
And I find, personally, I think 3D games age worse than that 2D art style does.
Maybe that's a topic we can cover in a future episode.
Absolutely. Aside from playing that first episode of Guardians of the Galaxy, I am super close to finishing Trails of Cold Steel 2, Legend of Heroes.
Oh, Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 2. What a name.
Yeah, long title. We usually just call it Cold Steel 2.
Yeah.
Shorthand, it's a lot easier.
You've had a bit of a hiatus from that game, haven't you?
Exactly 7 months to the day I found out. I was looking at my old save files. I'm like, whoa, okay, it's been a while. Let's see if I remember actually how to play this game. But thankfully, it's came back to me pretty easy. And also combat, because you can take your time thinking about each and every move. It's not an action RPG. It's a turn-based game, so you can, if you panic or if you're not sure, you can just sit there and it'll just sit there waiting for this person to take their turn, and the enemy's not going to attack you, so it's all good.
Well, they have codes of honor. They won't attack when it's not their turn.
Exactly, which I find kind of funny. I appreciate it because it gives me time to think, but I've always found that style of gameplay kind of funny because I'm like, as if an enemy is just going to stand there and let like 4 kids from a high school attack them until they get the snot beaten out of them and then take their turn. Anyway.
So you'll happily just pick up a game you haven't played in 7 months and just go about as if nothing's happened?
If I'm this close to finishing it, yes. If I'd only just started it, like there's a couple of games where I've definitely picked up and not gotten far enough, then I would probably then just go back to the beginning and start again. Like Fire Emblem's a good example of that one.
Mm-hmm.
Or Persona Q.
You did not get far in
The
that.
poor
before you
DS,
dropped it.
there's a bit of a pattern there. Probably because they don't have trophies.
See, I'm more of a gamer where I play through a game start to finish, then shelve it for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if I've played something 50 to 70% through, and then I don't touch it for almost a year, that's probably going back onto the backlog, and I'm starting fresh.
Mm.
And I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if there's any of you out there who have the same sort of preference when it comes to just playing a game and not picking something up halfway and forgetting all the minor, like the foreshadowing and little minor details in the story and little nuances and the attachment to the characters. Because then if a character dies or something tragic happens, you're like, oh, well, I haven't seen him for 10 months or whatever. That doesn't really affect me as much as it would if you'd spent the last, 6 weeks playing that game.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think it's better if you can play it and not put it down. But I feel like when I've gone back to this that certain things do come back to me, memories and even minor characters' names. Like I'll run into them as I'm exploring like Celtic or something in the town and speaking to people. I'll be like, hey, I remember this, and I remember them from the first game as well, and I can still remember all the little nuances because things that they've said, or just sometimes just seeing a picture of that character kind of brings back those memories. Like looking at old photos helps you remember old memories that you might not have necessarily thought of on your own.
Yeah, maybe I've just got an old man brain in one ear out the other.
Well, we've got some more gaming goals. We'll go back to them at the end of this episode and see what new challenges we can have. In the meantime, let's jump into our first topic.
Well, you were playing Guardians of the Galaxy. Telltale Games, they've made a lot of series of episodic games.
Yes. So for those who are unfamiliar with the term, do you want to explain in layman's terms what episodic gaming is?
If you draw the parallel of a game that's released by a studio and goes on the shelf in its complete form, that's like a movie, right?
Yep.
You go, you get it from start to finish, and then you enjoy it, and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Episodic gaming is more like a television show where you get episode 1 and then you have to wait for episode 2.
Yes.
And then you finish episode 2 and then episode 3. But the problem is TV shows usually are either daily or weekly.
Yeah.
Unless it's Netflix, which they just go, here, and just drop like 16 episodes on your head at once.
Netflix does have some that are like weekly.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So daily or weekly, you can wait. You can talk to your friends. You can build up the hype.
Mm-hmm.
The problem you run into with episodic games are that it can be a tight release schedule, 4 weeks, another episode drops. Or it can be sort of, it'll be done when it's done. Kentucky Route Zero, I'm looking at you. A game that caught my attention, sounded great. I didn't want to get on it too early, and I'm glad I didn't because it's been probably 2.5 years since the last episode came out for that, and it's still not finished.
Ways.
Yeah, it's had some big development cycles between those episodes.
I feel for me like that's always been the struggle, and we tried it once to play something as each episode came out. I believe it was Life is Strange.
Correct.
And at first we're like, yeah, we're on the bandwagon. We can live tweet and stuff and talk about things with everyone as they're playing it too. And at least we felt like we were in the loop. But then it was such a long wait. It was months before the second episode came out that we lost steam and we're like, ugh, I can't even really remember where we left off.
Yeah.
And so we didn't touch it until all of the entire game had been released. And then we went back from the start and went through it again.
And like I said in the first section of this podcast, if I have a break of that long, I do lose focus. I do lose attention. It's not something I'll finish an episode and I'll be like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then 2 months pass and then the next part of the story's not out. And by the time it does, I've moved on to something else.
Yeah.
It's difficult. You can either be, like I played the first lot of the modern Telltale games, like The Walking Dead, The Wolf Among Us. I got all those when their seasons were completely wrapped up. So I could start to finish play through them.
Mm-hmm.
We decided to try it with Life is Strange. I don't think I like it, but there's there's no balance. You can either choose to be at the cutting edge and be like contemporary and like this is new, this is just came out, I can get on top of it, I can buy in at the ground floor.
Yeah.
Or do you wait and get the whole experience?
I think if you were like if we were professional gaming journalists, then I would have to be playing as they came out because you'd want to review it. You would want to be always ready with the latest gaming news, as opposed to, playing something a year after it's launched, like Breath of the Wild.
Oh, the best game of the past decade, and I'm showing up, 15 months late. Or if you had that personality where you always wanted to be the friend that was at the forefront of gaming and would always say, hey guys, you got to play this, and you're the person in that group that's like recommending the new things that come out and want to be ahead of the curve, kind of like a slight hipster mentality a little bit of I discovered it before anybody else before it became cool. Boy, that was late high school me.
So maybe at a younger age this would have worked better for you, possibly.
Yeah.
So I think it's just because we get distracted so easily and we lose steam. I mean, it's easy enough, like with games that are completed and out, we still get distracted by other stuff that comes
7-month gap.
out. Exactly.
Cold steel for you.
So when you have that big of a gap, and especially because they're very story heavy, it's easy to forget the details and lose momentum and try to remember the choices you made as well, because they're so key and you're making pivotal choices to determine the end outcome for a lot of
each
these.
Each episode in these series of anything episodic is usually a big dramatic choice, and then you got to wait 6 to 8 weeks at least
with that
to see the payoff.
Yeah. They're great, and because each episode's usually you can play them in about 2 hours each sitting, depending on how large they are. It's so great. If you really had the time, you could play usually through one of these in a whole day and enjoy the full story. It would be like kind of binge watching your favorite TV show, essentially.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, so we love a lot of pretty much everything that Telltale has done has been a lot of fun, I think, and would be up there.
It's also easier on the developers because they don't have to have a complete final product. They can work on a smaller section of the game, get some income from that, then use those funds to work on the next section. And a lot of their income from those comes from early buyers of season passes.
Yeah.
Now, these games like the Wolf Among Us and things like that, they are surprisingly cheap. If you buy a season pass after it's out and it's on sale, you can pick them up for chump change. Yeah,
they're really, especially if you've got like a PlayStation Network, PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, added discounts.
Or Xbox Live, you can get a lot of these games for nothing.
Yeah.
It's one of those things I kind of love-hate with like pre-ordering, essentially.
Oh, yes.
Because it's a season pass. You don't know necessarily if you're going to love the game or not. It's a bit of a gamble.
There have been some pre-orders in the past few years that have absolutely blown up in people's faces.
Yes. We're going to dig into that as we jump into our other topic later with expansion packs and DLC, because I think that's where it can be more risky when you get season passes for things like that. But, I mean, for smaller developing companies, I get the mentality of having that money and knowing that you've got the income so you can work on those next episodes. But I feel like it can set you up for a fall as well. So it's like anything in business, it's risky.
It's definitely a roll of the dice. That is for certain.
Some other episodic games. Hitman. Which is unusual because not all of them were.
No, none of the other ones were.
It's only the most recent one, right?
Absolutely. And that surprised me because when that was first revealed, E3's coming around the corner again. And when that was announced, I thought, yes, a new Hitman. I love that series because it's just like how do I explain it?
Your face is giddy right now.
Oh, I just love it's like having a bunch of Lego. You can build whatever you want. You can make a plane, you can make a robot, you can make a house. Hitman gives me that feeling again where you just go, all right, this is my target. How am I going to eliminate him? Am I going to disguise myself as his number one bodyguard, follow him around, and then drown him in a toilet? Am I going to snipe him? Am I going to plant C4 in his office? Am I going to poison his food?
Pufferfish, anybody?
Oh, a bit of fugu.
Mm-hmm.
The world is your oyster in that game. I just love the flexibility and the creativity that it brings out in my darker side. I probably shouldn't enjoy assassination this much.
It is amusing, and it's probably one of the more fun games to do trophy hunting in.
Yes, when I've made clear in the past, checklists are my jam, and Hitman basically says, okay, how about we guide you in this direction? How about you try and take him out this way? And you're like, ooh, don't mind if I do. I'm very excited. Why am I so excited about this?
You're like a little kid at Christmas.
But the latest Hitman was episodic, and I didn't know if it would work. The bad news is, like I said, you can't get the entire experience. You can't finish one level, move on to a new environment.
Mm-hmm.
But the time between episodes did allow you to experiment more and play around more in the levels you already had, which led to more, entertaining things. I had to capture some footage, send it to my mate who was also playing straight away and go, I cannot believe this worked. Check out this. And it was just fantastic.
At least because you can redo challenges different ways and get trophies like that it gives you more replay value while you're waiting for the next episode to come out.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got something that you kind of want to keep the choices that you've made canon for storyline's sake, you don't want to touch it until the next episode comes out because it might change how you perceive the game.
Oh, yeah. I don't think in a Telltale's game you'd replay your episode and overwrite your save file. I certainly wouldn't because I'm all about making a canonical playthrough.
Unless you made some really bad choices. You might
you
do
must
that.
live with them.
Well, that's how we do our first playthroughs. If you make mistakes, you have to kind of live with them, kind of like Heavy Rain style.
Oh, I would love to watch you play Until Dawn.
No way. Stop.
Sweaty hands.
You're going to give people ideas. Nope. All right. So, speaking of scary games, Resident Evil.
Challenge Brendo Jim
no,
on Twitter.
No, shh. Stop it.
Scary games. Resident Evil.
Yes.
Revelations 2. That was episodic, wasn't it?
I'm asking you. I haven't played it.
It was. Another one I wasn't sure would work. The Resident Evil series was a bit patchy at that point in time. There were more misses than hits. And Revelations 2 was actually one of the brighter points. And that was, I believe, a 4-episode. That's off the top of my head.
You keep asking, you're looking at me for confirmation, and I have not played any Resident Evil game ever. You should not be looking at me like I have the answers.
Hashtag Challenge Brendo Jim on Twitter.
Stop it. Seriously. I don't do scary games.
Well,
with the exception of Luigi's Mansion on the Wii U.
So you can handle ghosts.
I can handle those ghosts.
Okay, Fatal Frame.
I can handle Boo.
Hashtag.
I can handle. Stop it.
Challenge.
You're gonna cop it.
You're gonna cop it on Twitter.
No. Oh my goodness. Changing the subject. Sonic. Talk about Sonic.
Oh, I could always talk about Sonic. And in fact, it is relevant in this because there was a Sonic game that was episodic. Sonic the Hedgehog 4 was episodic. And that game, I didn't like the first time I played it because the physics felt weird. It didn't feel right. Sonic 1, great. Sonic 2, great. Sonic 3, great. Sonic 4, sad trumpet.
Was that when it started to go downhill?
Oh, it went downhill a long time before that. But that was the first 2D console-based Sonic game in quite a while. Mm-hmm. So it was exciting for the fans. But everything from the running animation to, it just didn't feel right.
What about being episodic? Did it change the formatting for you at all?
Well, it did because they added in new features, new moves. Tails was actually following around in episode 2 of Sonic 4. It wasn't around in the first half. Mm-hmm. So it was basically a slight improvement. They tweaked a few things, gave you some more powers. It opened up a few more options for you, but it still wasn't exactly worth the investment at the time. Mm-hmm. I've played it since then and actually enjoyed it more the second time, which, I don't know, it's just weird.
All right, Siren Blood Curse.
That's a lot of episodes. I believe that had 12 episodes, each like individual mission. That was another game, though, that I got after it all came out. So I don't know what the development cycle was on that. Me and my buddy, the Falcon, played through that with a little added bonus danger.
Oh, yeah?
It's a horror game, and we like to play co-op, and we also like to play alternating controllers if it's a single player, because most horror games, on consoles in particular, are single player.
Yeah.
We added in the extra stipulation that if you died while it was your mission, you had to eat a bean-boozled bean. Now, for those who do not know what they are a bunch of jelly beans that are basically a 50-50 split between a delicious flavour, like Tutti Frutti, or a not-so-delicious flavour, like canned dog food.
Delicious.
And there were some beans eaten in that, and it added that extra day. If you think it's scary playing a horror game, wait until there's stakes that you might have to eat a vomit-flavoured jelly bean if you die in the game.
Good idea for penalty games for anyone who wants to add an extra level of threat.
Oh, you add those stakes and it becomes a lot more sweatier hands.
I love it.
Can I just say?
What?
Expansion packs back in the day of PC gaming in like the late 90s, expansion packs were the best. I mean, I'm telling you, it's one of those cases where more of the same was not a bad thing.
Like The Sims.
Because you would play, The Sims had like 80,000 expansion packs.
They still do. That in World of Warcraft.
This is like pre-DLC because you couldn't just download it. You'd go to your local Harvey Norman and buy the CD that had it on it.
Are we jumping ahead to the next topic, mister?
Oh, I am. I'm sorry. Just
all right.
Speaking of expansion packs, got me excited.
Well, you can hold on to that excitement because we've still got one last thing to touch on. Probably one of the most controversial in our entire list. One that gets fans still upset to this day. Half-Life 2.
This is another one that sort of blurs those lines between episodic and DLC.
Mm-hmm.
It is technically episodic because the episode names have episode in them. So really,
yeah,
you can't argue that point. Half-Life 2 came out to incredible accolades. I'm talking like review scores 10 out of 10, 5 stars, the works. It was one of the earliest shooters that incorporated an actual proper physics engine. So, of course, there were physics puzzles. You had to pick up rocks and stack them on a seesaw so you could escape a sewer, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Half-Life 2 was incredible. It had atmosphere, excellent combat, great storytelling, facial animations that were like ahead of its time. It was great, and fans wanted more. So they
still do.
Don't jump ahead too much. So they made Half-Life 2 Episode 1, which is a confusing name, admittedly.
It kind of sounds like with the iPhones when they release with like the S's instead of just going the next number. Good grief.
Well, I had an iPhone 3GS. So I don't know what letters, that was just throwing letters out there. So then following that, Half-Life 2 Episode 2 came out and furthered the story. And that was pretty darn great as well. It continued the momentum. Everything's building up. There's a great big cliffhanger at the end. And then nothing. There was no Half-Life 2 Episode 3. There was no Half-Life 3. It gets joked about every time E3's coming around.
Mm-hmm.
Poor Half-Life fans. It's like when your favourite TV show gets cancelled at the 11th hour and they haven't had time to rewrite it. You've just got nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Ugh, every year I'm always seeing the memes about Half-Life and people begging Valve and other developers and stuff going, when are we going to get Half-Life 3? I mean, that would suck though, like, especially if that was one of your all-time favourite series and just to be left on a cliffhanger. I feel though that maybe the creators are worried that they can't live up to the hype now.
It does happen. There are developers like Square said, we will not remake Final Fantasy VII, which is what everyone wanted them to do, until we make a Final Fantasy game that is better than Final Fantasy VII.
There you go.
And I don't know if they succeeded in that. 15 was pretty good.
I don't know if it's quite hit that level yet. Maybe sometimes I think nostalgia does play a role in what makes a game so great, though.
Yeah.
That people go, because it was something they played when they were younger, and maybe not so cynical or judgy or critical about games, that new games are held to a much higher standard than the stuff that they played when they were kids.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to talk about games that have aged well and games that have not aged well in a future podcast.
We've got too many things to talk about.
Too many plates juggled. But back on topic, when the Final Fantasy VII remake was revealed, I believe last year's E3, that crowd, they exploded in cheers. They were excited for that. If Half-Life 3 or Half-Life 2 Episode 3
ever gets announced,
that will happen again.
It'll break the internet.
And that Final Fantasy VII remake is going to be episodic.
Oh, there you go.
Now that's an interesting one because they're taking a game that is already a full established game
and breaking it into pieces
and chopping it up.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. That's one of those things I will keep my eye on just out of curiosity.
I wonder if that'll hurt it or not. I don't know if that... See, that's the kind of decision I wonder if that would backfire on them.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's going to take a mighty effort for them to even match the feeling when Final Fantasy VII came out originally. Will they miss the mark? It's entirely possible, but I'm looking forward to finding out.
Up next on the Gaming Lovers podcast, we're going to talk about DLC and gaming expansion packs that are actually worth investing your money into right after this. You're listening to the Gaming Lovers podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side, and you could be featured in the next podcast.
Expansion packs, yes! I'm just so excited to talk about expansion packs. Can we just jump straight into this?
Oh, why not?
You don't... Maybe you weren't such a gamer, but games like...
Oh, I'm sorry. Because this is a audio medium, you guys can't see my husband bouncing around in his chair in this booth like a little kid who, just got told he was going to get given a pony from Santa or something. Like, it's just...
Don't judge me.
I'm not judging. I'm just trying to explain why I can't breathe. Okay. Oh, I'm ready. Expansion packs and DLC. Let's do this.
Okay, picture this. It's 1998. I am a young, I don't even know how old I was. 13-year-old.
Hair on the top of your head.
Oh, I had plenty.
Sorry,
it was
I went
almost
there.
shoulder length. I was head over heels in love with Star Wars. My favourite game of that era, Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight.
Kotor hadn't come out yet?
No. Dark Forces, which was a MS-DOS Star Wars first-person shooter.
DOS?
Yes.
DOS.
Now, the sequel wasn't DOS.
Was it on a floppy disk? Or a CD-ROM?
It may have been a CD-ROM.
CD-ROM. Oh, I remember playing Macca's games on CD-ROMs.
Hey, don't knock it. I played games on floppy disks. Commander Keen was the bomb.
So did I. I can't remember what they were called anymore, but I do remember having... But if you borrowed them, you'd risk getting viruses that destroyed your whole computer.
There was no Norton back then. It was it was Russian roulette. If you were borrowing a floppy disk from a friend, and it could just kill your whole computer.
It destroyed many a CPU that way.
That game was incredible. It had real actors playing the characters in the cutscenes. And I thought that was just the bee's knees at the time. That story was incredible. The bosses were incredible. There was 7 Dark Jedi. It was just a whole great big story. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get any better, expansion pack announced. Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight. Mysteries of the Sith. Starring my favourite character from the now defunct expanded universe, Mara Jade. Now, that expansion pack was tough as nails. I don't think I got past the second level without cheats, but that was an exciting time. There was expansion packs for only the cream of the crop, basically, at that time.
Oh, okay. Well, that ended up being...
What's the earliest expansion that you desperately needed for a game?
the only thing I can remember from being like my childhood would be The Sims.
Well, they had a lot.
They're still releasing stuff. It's insane. I remember even one expansion pack. I can't remember. It had hot. I think the word hot in the title. And my best friend's mum at the time did not want us to buy it because she thought it looked too risque.
Oh, no.
So, fond memories of The Sims and their Simlish and Simoleons and things. I haven't touched those games in a very long time, though.
It was The Sims Hot Date.
Hot
Because I know we had that in our household too.
I just remember having the red cover and stuff like that on it. Yep.
Absolutely
That's
it
what I
did.
learned. Oh, goodness. But yeah, my whole family, we were big adopters. We loved SimCity. And so when The Sims came out, we were on that bandwagon pretty early, actually. And it was a game that my parents were cool with me actually getting the expansion packs for because everyone in our family pretty much played it except my dad. So
As a sidebar, you made a family and played the game as it's supposed to be played, or did you lay the cheats on thick to get all of those simoleons rolling?
A bit of both. I think I started off doing it the right way. But when I learnt the cheat codes,
It's difficult without the cheats.
it really is. Although if I played it now, I'd probably choose to not use them and actually play it properly. And now that I understand the best mechanics and stuff, but
If you tried to play it properly, you'd probably have to build a house without any ground and you're just living with grass in your house.
you can buy pre-made homes, like really basic ones that are furnished with like very basic furniture and like the worst toilet and the worst this and that. And upgrade, like, real life.
See, that's not how I played The Sims.
No, you had to build?
I would put me and 7 of my friends in a maze.
Oh, you're one of those.
I would build them in a room. Their bladder levels would get full. I'd build a maze with 7 toilets for 8 people. And the race was on. And then we would laugh about which of our friends couldn't hold it in.
So the truth comes out.
I'm seeing a pattern with the amount that I like the Battle Royale games, Last Man Standing, the way I liked the way I gushed over Hitman earlier. I think there's a dark side to me.
Oh, there is a lot of DLC out there, and there's probably too much for us to go through, but we're going to go through our favourites, and we'll quickly mention some honourable mentions, things that we think that are worth looking at, but we're not going to go into great detail.
Yeah, now that I think about it, it used to be quite rare a game got an expansion, but nowadays...
It's kind of like you have to, otherwise you are not creating a game correctly, or at least not enough to make the money that they want to make on it.
It's all about the money.
Dala dala. Dala dala.
All right, well, what are some of your favourites?
All right. It's going back to my favourite games, I think, is the natural course of things because...
Well, I asked what your favourites are.
Yes, and they naturally linked to my favourite games.
That makes perfect sense.
So, first up, Mass Effect 3, the Citadel DLC.
That was a great DLC.
It was. And it was just chock full of fan service. So, for those who don't really know what that means, basically full of in-jokes for those who are loyal fans of the series. Very fluffy, nothing too serious really in there. Pretty almost fourth wall breaking actually content, but so hilarious and full of like meme worthy moments. And some of my favorite moments with the crew, like with Grunt in particular, if Grunt has made it through to the 3rd game, if he's still alive, he has some absolutely hilarious moments in that DLC.
Good old Grunt.
So funny. And
Shout
Steve
out
Bloom does
Steve
such a
Bloom.
good job.
Very.
What is one of your favourites?
The one I've liked the most in recent years, I played through Dying Light with the Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we played that entire game co-op, 50 hours worth. Me and him, our schedules conflict an awful lot, so we put a lot of effort and sacrificed a lot of sleep to play through that. And then the DLC hit, and that was great. The Following, it was called. And that was, again, a case of more of the same. Here's a few new toys. Have fun. It was a new open country area. You had cars, zombies everywhere. Cars and zombies, usually a fun combination.
One that I will bring up that I have not personally played, because I've not played through the series. It's on my radar, though. The Witcher 3, Blood and Wine, is easily marked as one of the best DLCs of all time, because it's considered almost like a whole new section of the map, like a whole new chunk of map just opened up for everyone to explore.
That does get a lot of critical praise.
Yeah,
and
the whole game does, but the DLC as well. It's good to know that when you're buying DLC that it's just as good, if not better, than the original content.
Yeah, and hopefully that's what we're getting across. If it's sometimes games can be criticised for being too much of the same. But if it's something that you love, if it's your favourite cake,
let there be more cake.
Why would you not want another slice?
Exactly right. And if it's something that's really beloved, you don't want them to change the formula too much. I think if they mess with it too much for the sake of, mixing it up, then that can ruin a good thing.
Yes, it can.
More recently, Horizon Zero Dawn, The Frozen Wilds. Beautiful. Again, kind of like The Witcher 3, where you've got a new section of map completely opened up. You kind of already knew about the Banuk because they're referenced through the main story, but you never really run into them until that DLC.
Boy, I hope you like snow.
Oh, yes. But thankfully there are some, fetch quests that send you back out to the main map just to kind of give you a breather from all that snow. But the snow is beautiful. It's kind of like in God of War, you see it kind of cling to her clothes, to Aloy's clothes, and her footprints and stuff, and the crunch of the snow beneath. Oh gosh, modern games are beautiful and the sound is so crisp. I love it.
Who needs to ever actually go up a mountain
Exactly.
to experience the glory of snow?
I don't need to go somewhere cold and snowy. I can just play video games.
Fun fact, that game also had DLC that allowed it to go to an ultra-hard difficulty. You couple that with the increased power and damage the new enemies in the Frozen Wilds dish out, and people were complaining to the developers that maybe a little too hard, even though we've picked ultra hard as our difficulty.
Yeah, I'd save the ultra hard for when you do a New Game Plus, which you actually can do with Horizon Zero Dawn. Another favourite of yours?
There's so many memories flooding through my head as I speak. Warcraft 3 had a phenomenal extra chapter added. The Frozen Throne.
A lot of Frozen themes here.
Is it just me or is it getting cold in here? The Frozen Throne, sort of like how StarCraft 2 had its, this campaign with this species, this campaign with this species, this campaign with this species. Warcraft 3 had that as well. But then you played in a completely different order in the expansion. And, for example, the ones that you finished the main game with, you played early on. So it was like a completely turning the formula on its head. And, of course, like anything else that we love, the story was just fantastic.
Going back to a game that I probably have mentioned every single episode of this podcast so far, Dragon Age.
Dragon Age, yes.
Now, there's two I want to mention. One, which I would say is the best for the series so far, in Dragon Age Origins, Awakening.
That was another case of a whole new, it was almost like a miniature version of the game.
Yes.
As DLC.
You could easily play 20 to 30 hours just in that expansion alone, which is huge. But it also came with several other expansions, which were fun. Liliana's Song, Witch Hunt. There was one where you could even play as Darkspawn and try to kill the character that you've been playing as the entire game to stop them from winning.
Does that cause confliction?
But it's kind of funny because it's obviously not
it's like
canon.
What if?
Yeah, it's kind of a silly little, let's see if you can kind of stop your own hero from winning the game, basically. So I love that they had that, and you could get ultimate editions that came with all of those expansion packs in part of the price. So I think that's where a lot of fans got so attached to Origins, because it came with all this other stuff too.
Yeah.
Really great, really well written, all of it. And then kind of went a little bit downhill from there in number 2.
Well, Awakening almost had entirely new party members. They had a full roster of recruitable party members that were brand new in that DLC. New maps, a whole new story, or a new extension of the story, but, a whole new chapter. And it's more of what you love, but it's different. It's like that cake that we said you get the extra slice. Oh, it has a bit of cherry flavouring in it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of cake I love, in Dragon Age Inquisition, there was a couple of DLC, and I honestly enjoyed all of it. But the one that I say is always must buy for anyone that plays through the game, because it's so important story-wise, is Trespasser.
Yep. I couldn't remember what it was called, but I knew exactly the one you were talking about.
Yeah. The other two, have very interesting information and will help build the lore of that whole world, that whole universe of Thetis. But Trespasser really gives closure and answers a couple of questions, because the game itself kind of ended a little bit on a cliffhanger of bombshell, here's this, and bye-bye.
Thanks!
So Trespasser comes back a couple of years later and says this is what's happened to everybody and where everyone is. And I love that.
Those ones are always good. When you come back to an established setting a few years later and get to find out what this character's doing. Mm-hmm. These two characters are now best buds hanging out together. All that sort of stuff. Yeah. That is just... It's so good.
And normally we have to wait for another game in the series to find out what's happened to our characters that we get so attached to and where they've gone. But so to be able to see where they are in the same game and jump ahead and know how the Inquisition's going to shape basically the known world, or at least the world that they've shown us so far.
Yep.
I loved that. I loved it so much. And I also loved just all the little... Again, it was kind of similar to the Citadel DLC, where you get to spend a lot of one-on-one time with your party members and have fun. And you can even get married.
Oh!
If you so choose with whomever you've romanced.
You thought I was excited about the Star Wars game earlier.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure her cheeks went just that extra shade of red when she said, "You get to be married."
Oh, dear. Okay, your turn.
There are also some DLCs, add-ons, expansions that simply give you more, but just sort of ratchet up that difficulty. Bloodborne had a pretty great DLC that was basically more of the same. Let's make you suffer just that smidge more. If you haven't suffered enough.
Yeah, the main campaign's not hard enough.
Sure, here's some new weapons, here's some new bosses, some new enemies, some new locations, but you're going to cry tears of pain.
That was the Old Hunters, right?
The Old Hunters, yes. And the other one that comes to mind, on the complete opposite end of the scale, New Super Mario Bros. U had an expansion called New Super Luigi U. And that was... If Mario Maker hadn't come out and you saw the insanely difficult levels people created in that, it would have been the pinnacle of tough Mario level design. We'll put it that way.
Luigi doesn't get enough love, I think.
A little extra challenging, a little extra frustration, shall we say, when your lives start to dwindle from 98 down to like 30.
Mm-hmm. All right, some honourable mentions, because we're running out of time and there's just too much DLC.
Well, not all of it's good.
But things that are definitely worth checking out. The Last of Us Left Behind.
Another good standalone. You can buy that without even buying the game. Not that you should. Always play things in release order.
We would never, ever not recommend anyone play like The Last of Us. Like, I think that's up there as one of the greatest, at the very least, one of the greatest PlayStation games of all time.
Yeah, that is a good one. Absolutely.
Baldur's Gate 2.
That had a nice one. I did pen that down earlier. Throne of Baal. New spells, new everything.
Red Dead Redemption.
Another one that had a standalone expansion.
And not canon at all, but just for fun. When you're dealing with the undead.
It's historically accurate. I'm sure the Old West went through some troubles.
A couple of other honourable mentions, going back to Mass Effect, but Mass Effect 2, The Lair of the Shadow Broker.
I really liked that one.
A lot of fun.
That's probably my favourite Mass Effect DLC.
And Borderlands 2, Tiny Tina Assault on Dragon Keep.
We're yet to play that.
Yes.
We've had some things in the way. We were playing a co-op run of Borderlands 2.
We got distracted like everything else.
It's not a 7-month gap. But maybe we should get back to that sometime soon.
Yes. And some other things I wanted to mention as far as DLC, because DLC isn't always story-related. Sometimes DLC and expansion packs are characters or costumes, like aesthetics.
Ooh, can I jump in?
You're always welcome to jump in.
Okay, cool. One of my favourite fighting games series, two of them off the top of my head actually, Soul Calibur and Dead or Alive. The reason I liked those games, back in the day, you unlocked extra costumes by doing certain challenges. Beat time attack, beat survival mode, beat infinity, endurance mode.
That's how it was all done back in the day, because you couldn't download extra content. It was always something you had to unlock with your own skill.
But you can unlock 5, 10, some cases even 15 or so alternate costumes for your characters through skill. And nowadays, you unlock those same amount of costumes by pulling out your credit card and going ka-ching. It breaks my heart.
Although sometimes, if you are vigilant, there are certain games like the Persona series where they've got a lot of costume expansion packs.
They do, yes.
Like a lot. They're fun. But, I mean, it's so much fun to make your characters run around as butlers and maids. But
I think we're learning things about you today.
Okay. The good thing is occasionally on the store they would be free. Like they might have one outfit for your whole party free for like a day. And then the next day there might be a different one that was free. But if you weren't on the ball, then you missed out.
Yeah, we have been sort of down on the extra cost of DLC because it can all add up. If you spend $80 on a brand new game, you don't want to spend another $60 on extra content.
Yes, especially if you feel like it should have been in the game in the first place.
Yeah, so occasionally developers do support their own games with free DLC. The Witcher 3 did this very well. With the exception of those 2 major expansions, they released a lot of extra content in that game. And like we said, when Persona 5 first launched, they released several sets of alternate costumes for free, which is awesome.
Sometimes you can get versions of the game that kind of include all of that expansion stuff as part of the game. You might pay a slight premium, but maybe not as much as you would if you'd bought them all individually.
Yeah, I just don't like when games have like pre-order bonuses.
Yeah.
Like you must pre-order to get this skin.
It's something, again, it's a love-hate thing where I can totally see where they're coming from. It hurts me because it feels a little like they're just trying to milk more money from the same cow.
I think we've all seen the memes where it's like back in the day and it shows a full burger and like the ketchup is the add-on. And then nowadays you buy half a bun and then you want the lettuce, that's $5. You want the meat, that's $10.
You know what's a good analogy? Building a house. Because, back in the day, building a house, you would expect a certain amount of things to kind of come with that when you buy it or go to a builder and say, hey, I want to build a house. But these days, like when we were looking at buying a home and we looked at builders, the things that are considered add-ons are insane. Oh, you want doors? Oh, that's going to cost you a couple of extra $1,000. Oh, you want locks on those doors? Oh, you would like extended eaves instead of the ones that like just hit the edge of the wall on your house? That's another couple $1,000.
I don't think I can afford this house anymore.
No, the prices that they give you when you're first looking versus what you end up paying because you get all these add-ons that to me should be standard. Like that's the kind of parallel that I think of now with the level that it's kind of getting to.
I think that's a very good analogy. That actually hits it right on the mark.
And I'm like, you understand why these businesses do it, and they do it as a way to make more money and to stay afloat. But at the same time, I feel like they're hurting themselves overall because they're taking advantage of the patrons and the people keeping them in business in the first place.
Yes.
I get very huffy in these podcasts.
Well, you have a reason to, because even if games themselves are good, the DLC not always so great.
I know.
And for people who just feel if they buy the premium edition pre-order where they spend $140 before the game's even out, or they buy the season pass the instant it's available, and they don't even know what they're getting yet.
Such a gamble. Fallout 4.
Oh my goodness, that was a disaster. That was expensive season pass too.
Yes, I loved Fallout 4. Really enjoyed playing that. I mean, I don't think I would have gotten the platinum on it if I hadn't. But I'm really glad that we didn't get the season pass because the DLC for that has been pretty atrocious
Yeah.
and gotten some pretty bad reviews across the board.
The Dead Rising series is notorious for that too. Dead Rising 3 and 4. The DLC for that, not the best. And if you shell out, that 20, 30, 40 bucks for a season pass, that makes you feel a bit like a schmuck.
A little bit, unfortunately. So that's why it's good to do a little bit of research. Try to avoid spoilers if you can, if you're trying to find what DLC is worth getting, what expansion packs, anything that you're going to add to a game. Make sure you find out if it's going to be worth the money that you're putting into it. Or find it, when it goes on sale if you can. Save yourself some money so you're not paying full price for DLC that's frankly not worth paying full price for.
Thankfully, because it is DLC, it is downloadable content. The digital sales they have on the PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Steam, they usually, if you are patient, you will get a good discount. And if you do want a spoiler-free scouting mission, you can check out like average review scores like I do at Game Rankings or Metacritic or things like that. So you can get an idea. You don't get any details about the game, but if it's below 70, maybe it's going to be a bit sketchy. And if it's above 90, then you're in for a good time.
That said, reviews aren't always fair because everyone has different tastes.
Oh, for
so
sure.
Find people that are on the same wavelength as you, because just because we really love some of the DLC that we've mentioned doesn't necessarily mean that you might. There might be games or additional content that you prefer from other series because you like different experiences to us, and that's all cool. So long as you know that you're going to enjoy it, and if you've got a beloved series and they've got DLC that doesn't necessarily rank well, even if it doesn't rank well, it still might be enjoyable for you because you love the series.
Are you saying there's some people out there on the internet that aren't happy with Mass Effect 3?
I don't know how to answer that. I know people have beef with the ending, but I still think it's a solid game.
Yeah, no, I was just teasing.
I'm going to get all defensive.
It's still a sore, tender spot.
I will fight. I will fight you.
What colour boxing gloves are you going to pick?
Purple.
That wasn't a purple option.
I know. Oh, no. Spoilers.
You know what was
See, I'm not going to say.
You know what was purple?
What?
Mara Jade's lightsaber in Dark Forces 2. Jedi Knight, Mysteries of the Sith.
All right. Gaming goals, mister.
That changed topic mighty quickly. Gaming goals. What are you going to be doing for your gaming goals?
All right, I want to keep finishing up the Guardians of the Galaxy Telltale game now that I've started, or at least done the first episode. So I'm intrigued. For those who have played it and have also seen Infinity War, I feel like this first episode, I'm like, well, why didn't this happen? Where was that gun when we needed it? That's all I'm going to say.
That did shock me a bit too.
A part of me, see, spoilers. It's so hard. I want to do a spoiler talk episode so I can talk about this. Maybe, see, I'm coming up with more podcast episode ideas.
Well, tune in every day this week where we'll have 6 podcasts per day for your listening pleasure.
How much editing are you going to make me do?
Well,
I also want to finish Cold Steel 2.
Oh, where have I heard this before?
No. Hey, I played it.
Sorry, that was a little heavy.
Oh, I know. Getting all snarky with me.
Snark.
Snark. So I'm towards the end there. I'm getting closer. And so I'm hoping to wrap that up. And I might be able to wrap both up, but I'm not going to try. I'm going to focus more on Cold Steel 2 and at least one more episode of Guardians of the Galaxy. What about you?
I am going to keep doing my Zelda double play.
Mm-hmm.
The Switch has Breath of the Wild going. Maybe a couple more weeks in that. I'm enjoying taking my time in that.
And
I don't want
Ocarina
to rush myself. And Ocarina of Time at the same time. But like I said, that's a lot easier. It just comes more naturally. It's a smaller environment. It's more task-based. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Breath of the Wild, I'm just out in the middle of like a snowy mountain on a tower going, where am I going next? I have no... this way? Let's head west. That sounds good.
Do you not have quest markers?
I do, but I like to explore.
What about the other challenge that I gave you regarding Yakuza and Japan?
You want me to start Yakuza 4 immediately?
You're going to have to start it soon because you've also got to play 5 and 6 before we go to Japan. You don't have much time.
No.
Yes.
I have to play 4, 5, 6, and 0 before we go.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Oh, the things I do like about that game, it has virtual tourism, which helps. And I'm learning Japanese, so I'm identifying more and more kanji. I know that says entrance. I know that says big eating house, something to that effect. You know, it is helpful. I can understand things like banana and hamburger.
You use 2 English words.
They're borrowed words written in katakana. I read the kana and I know what they're talking about.
That's fair enough. But we need you to finish that series so we can actually choose some locations we want to find in real life.
Well, you know what? I did just finish Yakuza 3. Most times, if I'm playing a series, Zelda excluded since I'm playing 2 of them at the same time, I like to take a break, play something else to cleanse the palate. But I'm hankering to start Yakuza 4. So guess what? I think it's set.
Okay. And I have the added challenge of finishing a co-op run with my sister of A Way Out, which is a game you can, I think you have to play it co-op.
You cannot play that single.
It's very Heavy Rain style, would you say? With kind of like the reaction,
Just the way you
action.
interact with things.
What's it called when you've got the buttons and you've got so much time to push it?
Quick time events.
Quick time events, thank you. It has a quick time event kind of combat, and you've got to work together to kind of get out of jail, basically, and escape. So we're playing through that at the moment, and we've been recording it as well as we're going, and I tell you what, my sister has the best laugh in the world.
I can't wait to hear this.
It's going to be really funny.
Well, maybe we should do a future episode about co-op games.
I think so, and we've got our friends Mel and Steve, the ones who challenged us to the Overcooked challenge a while ago. They're also playing through it as well, so hopefully we can get everyone who's played through it and we'll have a big round table discussion about our choices and how certain things went in that game.
Hey, newsflash. Speaking of them, we beat their Overcooked score. They beat ours. We jokingly tasked them of beating the current world record for that level. Guess what they did?
6:42.
6:42 was the record. Guess what they did?
What?
6:44.
What? Of course they did.
We played for 8 hours to break 600.
Did they get proof?
Yes, it's all captured. And according to the spreadsheet I found with the world records, they've beaten another one as well.
Really?
They're going to be the world champions of Overcooked.
They're going to go in every category and just beat every single level.
Is there an Overcooked esports league we can sign them up for,
Put them up against Korea. If they have it over there, I don't know. But if anyone's going to be tough to beat, I imagine it would be them.
Well, you like Korean food. I'm sure you could do an Overcooked Korean DLC.
My mouth has literally started watering as soon as you mentioned Korean.
Shouldn't have said that. Should not have said that.
Oh, give me some kimchi. Okay.
Let's get out of here.
Yes. Until next time, thanks so much for joining us here on the Gaming Lovers podcast.
Thank you very much. We appreciate every download, every listen, every gaming moment shared between friends.
Yes.
Because that's what we are.
Please rate us and write a review, especially on iTunes and on Facebook.
Does definitely help with the exposure, getting our word out, getting our podcast out there.
And share with your gaming mates. Share the love.
Share the love for the gaming lovers. I'm so dorky.
If you want to follow this dork and see him do some live stream gaming, be sure to keep an eye on his YouTube channel. You can find the links on our website at thegaminglovers.com.
And one final thing, don't forget #ChallengeBrendoGem for Jess to play either Until Dawn, Resident Evil 7, or something scary.
Never mind what he just said. You are certainly welcome to send us messages on our website. Be sure to click the button that says join the podcast. You can record an audio message of up to 90 seconds. It might even get featured right here on The Gaming Lovers. Have a great week.
Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Gaming Lovers podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.